Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday, or whatever day it is when you're watching this, if you're catching the replay. Hey, Steph. Hey, Jan. Good to see you all. Thank you all for coming. I think notifications are probably just now going out, so it might be a minute. Today's topic that we're going to be chatting about is Elecampane. And I'm super excited to talk about this because I have that growing in my garden and we'll be harvesting that. So this was fun to prepare for. Before we get started, just a couple of administrative things I cover. So anybody who's new to this live, if you're here for the replay or here during this live, welcome. This is the Herbal Study Hall. My name's Tammy. And every week on Tuesdays, we have the Herbal Study Hall where we might cover herbs, herbal concepts, maybe even like medical concepts. And sometimes we'll share recipes. Sometimes we do giveaways. And I share my notes with all of you all. So that's what this is all about. And we're happy to have you join us. Now, before I get started, I do need to also read our medical disclaimer. And hey, Ann Philbeck, thanks for coming. So this live is for educational purposes only. I'm not a medical professional, and nothing shared here is meant to diagnose, treat, or replace medical advice from a qualified healthcare provider. Herbalism can be supportive, but everybody's body and health history are different. So please talk with your doctor or another licensed professional before trying new herbs, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, taking medications, or managing a chronic medical condition. All right. Hey, Aiden, thanks for coming. So let me go ahead. I'm going to try to share my screen here, and hopefully this will work out well. And we will go ahead and jump in to talking about Elecampane, which is a great herb. Every time I do these monographs, I always say, sometimes when I do these monographs, I feel like I know this herb and I'm always learning something new. So that's kind of fun. I did want to share some pictures real quick. Hold on. Can you guys, hold on. Can you see my screen? I wanted to share this. So this is who we're going to be talking about today. This is Elecampane. So right now, my plant does not have these beautiful flowers. It just has the big, huge leaves down at the bottom. But I found it interesting. Only in one place did I find where they used the leaves. Everyone else uses the root. So that's kind of interesting. And the Cherokee refer to this as wild sunflower, and a book from them is one of my references. But all kinds of great pictures. I just figured I'd Google that real quick so you guys could have a look-see. Beautiful plant. And by the way, it's huge. Like where I planted it, I probably could have picked a better spot. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for coming. So when you do plant it, keep in mind, it's going to need a lot of space. I mean, it's, I put it in a round herb bed and it's like taking over the joint. But, all right, let me share my screen one more time and we're going to pop over to the monograph. So bear with me. All right. I have this blown up for you guys. Listen, if you get commercials, you might want to fast forward a little bit when you come back from the commercials. So you can be with us as we're talking through things. I know it sets people back a little bit. So sorry about that. Yes, with the ads. Hey, Jamie, good to see you. I've got my phone next to me so I can see the chat while I share this screen. All right. So Elecampane, the Latin name for this is Inula helenium. And in TCM, it's called Tu Mu Zhang. It is a plant that is in the Asteraceae family. That's your sunflower or daisy family. And mugwort was in that family too. I don't know if you guys recall that from the last live, but mugwort is also in that family. A lot of good plants in the Asteraceae family. This is a large, as I mentioned, robust rhizomatous perennial. In other words, it grows rhizomes that grow not just a root that goes down, but a hardy root that grows out to the side. That's kind of handy because last year when I was sick, straight up, I went out there at nighttime and harvested a root. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, I hope you don't die, but I need you right now. And I harvested the root off of it. And anyways, so you can do that. You can harvest the rhizomes that grow out sideways and just let it grow in the middle and it'll die and come back. It is a perennial. And they can reach with those flowers up to 8 feet. So keep that in mind when you're planting your seeds, Jennifer. And you saw the flowers. Their petals aren't even quite petals. They're like this. Garden considerations. So where I have it planted is in full sun. It loves that, but it can tolerate some partial shade, and it prefers moist, well-drained, fertile soil. So I have it in a garden bed because anywhere else it's not going to get, those 3 qualities. But like I said, needs plenty of space. As it grows tall, it's suggested that maybe you stake it so that it can stay upright. And it can be propagated by seed or division. So as it creates those rhizomes and other new plants, you can propagate it that way. Dig it up, plant it somewhere else. And it flowers in its 2nd year. So I will say I planted it last year. Remember, I dug up some of the roots because I needed it because I was sick. And then this year is the 2nd year, but it hasn't flowered. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's why. We'll see. I mean, the season's not over yet. Maybe it will. So parts used, primarily the root and the rhizome. But I will say I found one place in the texts that actually referenced the leaves, which was interesting to me. So of the constituents, there is inulin. Does anybody here, have you all heard of inulin before? Inulin is also in a couple of other herbs. Burdock root is one of them. And whenever you go to make a tincture of it, I mention this because if you plan on making a tincture with this herb, what you might see at the bottom of your tincture, so like, your little dropper bottle, you might have about this much of white stuff. And that white stuff is the inulin. And you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't break it. It's not, contaminated or anything like that. That is the inulin. When you make a tincture of burdock root, it does the same thing. And I made burdock root. It was one of the first tinctures that I ever made years and years and many, many years ago. And when I did it, that's when I learned what inulin was, because burdock root has a lot of it. In this plant, it's purported to be a major constituent, around 40 to 45% of the root. And the concentration of that in the root depends on the season. So reportedly, there's higher levels in autumn than there are in spring. So kind of like with a lot of your roots, normally, rule of thumb, you want to harvest those roots in the fall when all of the energy is back into the roots to prepare for the winter. Not in the spring when the plants are sending the energy to other parts of the plant to prepare for the spring and to prepare for flowering and all of that. Also, this plant has sesquiterpene lactones, especially, and then here's a couple other lactone, allantollactone, isoallantollactone, volatile oils, thymol derivatives. Remember this thymol piece? You can see that in thyme. You can see that it was in mugwort that we just looked at. Also phenolic acids, flavonoids, mucilage. We know what mucilage means. That means that's like the quality that marshmallow root also has, like the soothing I don't know, slimy factor, if you want to call it that. I'm betting not much in this, though. I didn't notice much anyways. Sterols and triterpenes, and then some other things. See, this rosmarinic and caffeic acids have also been identified. And again, just kind of putting that out there because it's good to read these terms, even if you don't necessarily, they don't have much value for you at the time. You're going to start to recognize a pattern going from plant to plant to plant. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I go through these things and they'll start to register with you. And then you'll read a little bit about them, and then you're going to recognize them in the next plant. Vitamins and minerals, I would say this is definitely not well characterized and not a significant source of anything. I highlighted it in yellow because it's for my notes for me to come back to in case I read about any vitamins or minerals in any textbooks in the future for Elecampane. I want to make sure that I can update this. So energetics. This is a warming and drying herb. It's also very aromatic and mildly stimulating. So it's bitter and it's pungent. You can also say acrid. That's another word for pungent. We use acrid more in the TCM world. But the bitterness and the pungency contribute to the warming and drying character of the herb. So that's good to know. And it's particularly associated with moving and clearing accumulated mucus and phlegm while supporting digestion. So I thought right off, right out of the gate, I would share when it comes to Elecampane, what most people think of Elecampane for is it's a lung herb. It's a respiratory herb. It's used for treating coughs, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But it's also a bitter herb, and it's used for digestive health. And as a matter of fact, darn it, I meant to bring that book in here with me. There's a book that I have talked about for digestive health, and it's even in that book. It's listed as a great bitter. Yes, I love the bitter herbs too. They are so good. So some Western traditions might also describe the taste as being kind of sweet. Now I've tasted it, and I'll know. I'm not necessarily leaning on, team sweet for that herb. Definitely what you notice the most is bitter. But I will say that it's not as bitter as some other bitter herbs that I have tried. And I would also say that, I don't know, like maybe there is. It wouldn't be something that I would call out. So when talking about the channels impacted, and this is for my TCM people that are watching now or the replay, the channels impacted include the spleen, stomach, and lung. But there are some references that also include the large intestine. So The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra points to the spleen, stomach, and lung, and there's a couple other books. Another book by Thomas Garan, who's the owner of the school that I'm attending. In his book, he refers to the spleen, stomach, and lung as well. So let's talk about the actions. It's a bitter tonic. Do y'all remember what tonic means? Tonic is basically an herb that is supportive in a nutritive way, like a supplemental way. So it's a bitter tonic. It's also a carminative, an expectorant, a diuretic, a diaphoretic, antiseptic, astringent, stimulant, vermifuge, antiparasitic. And it's also anti-inflammatory, immunomodulating, alterative, and a emmenagogue. Anytime you see the word emmenagogue, it's probably not going to be good for anybody who's pregnant or breastfeeding. And as a matter of fact, no, it's not. It's not good for anybody who's pregnant or breastfeeding. It's tonifying to the lungs and the digestive system. It's strengthening and cleansing to the respiratory tract mucous membranes. And I thought this was interesting too. In The Way of Herbs, it actually lists it as a stomach tonic and as an anti-asthmatic. And I'll take a breath there. Anybody have any questions or comments so far? Are there any of these qualities that you're interested in. The digestive health, the lung health, the fact that it's also a stomach tonic. It's antiseptic and astringent quality. If you think about it, that could lend it towards other things too, right? Like antiseptic, anything antiseptic, you kind of think, okay, wounds. I've heard of combining mullein and elecampane. Yep, that's a good combination, right? Somebody else, Aidan shared that dandelion and burdock is a very popular drink in the UK. I've heard of that too. I heard one herbalist say that if you drank a dandelion burdock root drink like every day, that you would notice a difference in how you feel. The burdock root's really known for helping to clean your blood. And mullein and elecampane totally makes sense because mulleин's a great lung herb, right? Is there a place we can print all these notes info out, or can you do a mass emailing to us so we can put them in a binder? So Jennifer, I offer these notes to all of my members to the channel. If you sign a membership, I'll send these to you, but you got to email me. You got to email me and let me know that you want them. I don't know. And I haven't thought about like doing a regular email, like a monthly kind of email. One of these days I might do that. Yep. All right. So the anti-asthmatic quality, I know somebody that wanted me to maybe make a tincture for like asthma. And so this one caught my eye as far as that goes, because it's also a tonic. And when you see tonic, that also implies that it's going to be safe to take on a regular basis for most people. And we'll be talking about risks in just a little bit. So in TCM, got to include this TCM language because I know I've got some folks watching that are also practicing traditional Chinese medicine. And for TCM, it supplements the qi and resolves dampness, transforms phlegm, and aromatically transforms dampness. It fortifies the spleen and harmonizes the stomach, moves qi, and stops pain. I hope that by sharing some of this TCM information, that's going to be helpful for you guys, because you'll start to hear some of these terms over and over again. And I feel like that's a great way to introduce you to traditional Chinese medicine. All right, so let's talk about traditional uses. So in Western herbalism, it's used for respiratory complaints such as chronic coughs, clearing phlegm and mucus from the lungs, also digestive weakness, urinary system support, which you really don't hear a lot about. I did not see a lot about this, but I did see it here and there. It's just when I looked further in the texts and I tried to look for recipes and things that might be included in it, to kind of give me a feel of what is it being paired with, I didn't see a lot of it, but it is used for urinary system health. And then also your digestive system, digestive weakness, overall digestive system. And there was a note in one of the texts also that Elecampane is used for chronic mucus coughs and digestion. And if you think about that, that could be somebody who, has a chronic cough. Maybe they also have historic digestive issues. And you see here what's listed as asthma, bronchitis. And interesting to note, when we talk about dampness in TCM, we aren't just talking about mucus that's in our lungs. We could be talking about mucus that's in other areas of the body. Maybe, or phlegm would actually be the right way to refer to it. Now, remember, I'm still in my TCM classes, so bear with me on repeating this. But when we talk about phlegm, could be like arteriosclerosis, for example, trying to incorporate like a TCM term to a Western term. It could be edema. It could be in your digestive system. So interesting The Elecampane is used for chronic mucus, coughs, and digestion. Just kind of pointing that out. It is a carminative, so those properties help with the digestion and assimilation of food. So when we talk about your digestive health, we're also talking about not just, are you having a regular bowel movement? Are you not having issues with belching or gas or your stomach getting bloated after you eat? So it's not just talking about those things. It's also talking about, are you really assimilating the nutrition in your food? So carminatives will help your body, not just with those other things that I mentioned, but they'll also help with your body's ability to absorb the nutrition from the food that you're eating. And it's a great ingredient to include in glycerites and syrups for cough. Another mention about the inulin, and inulin feeds your friendly bacteria in your colon. So another point when we're talking about digestive health, we're not just talking about, keeping your gallbladder clean and your liver cleaned out and your stomach happy, but we're also talking about the health of your colon and the balance of your bacteria in your colon. So that feeds your friendly bacteria. And according to one of my references, author's name is Tilgner, it's been used for gastrointestinal ulcers. And remember, it has a mucilaginous factor to it. Maybe not as much so as marshmallow root, but when you think about gastrointestinal ulcers, you want something that's going to be an anti-inflammatory, and it's maybe going to be a little mucilaginous to help soothe, right? And so this herb will do that. So it helps with gastrointestinal ulcers, persistent bronchial catarrh or cough, and particularly in those chronic coughs, if anybody who's elderly or invalid, and chronic bronchitis and sinusitis, as well as tuberculosis. And I thought it was really interesting, the tuberculosis reference. I only found it in Tilgner's book. Here we go. Emphysema, folks. So conditions of emphysema. And another one that I thought was interesting that was referenced by Tilgner was that it's used in China for some types of malignancies. So love that. All right. How we all doing? You guys are quiet in the chat. Is all of this clicking? Anything you're seeing that you're finding interesting? Possibly, Steph. Possibly. And of all of this, it's also, don't forget, a vermifuge, so anti-parasitic. All right, now in TCM, it's used to treat distension, fullness, and pain in the chest and abdomen, vomiting and diarrhea, dysentery, and malaria. So this is from Western Herbs, according to TCM. I do actually have this book next to me. So this book I can show you guys. See if it'll let you see it. I gotta wait for my phone to catch up. So this book here, that's where I pulled all this next stuff from. If you're interested in Western herbs and you really want to see how they're used according to traditional Chinese medicine, this is a great book. This is a great book to reference because it contains the herbs in there, and then it shares with you the information I'm going to share with you here. This is all taken from that. It's used to treat, I mentioned the first bullet already, but malaria, that's cool. Helpful in treatment of spleen qi vacuity, causing indigestion, bloating, and diarrhea. So make a mental note. Those are all signs of spleen qi vacuity or spleen qi deficiency, we would say. It treats phlegm in the lungs and stomach and acute or chronic phlegm damp, especially associated with cold. So if somebody is of a cold constitution, we talked about that on one of our lives before, then that would be a person, because this is a warming herb and a drying herb, it would be good for those people. Some symptoms of a person that would have chronic phlegm damp, especially associated with cold, would be cough with clear or white abundant sputum. I'm not using the word phlegm because in TCM, phlegm has a whole other meaning. So we're going with the word sputum. Wheezing, asthma, nausea, and vomiting, or oppression in the chest with difficulty breathing. I have a typo. There we go. It's also effective for damp accumulation in the middle burner. With aroma, bitterness, and acridity, it transforms dampness and revives the spleen. This is similar to, there's an herb called atractylodes, and it's white atractylodes, and it may be used as a supplement for the atractylodes herb. Oh, did you go taste it, Anne? So what do you, okay, Anne went and tasted her Elecampane. Report back, Anne. What do you think? Sweet, bitter? Aw, I'm sorry about those commercials. All right. So I do have a Cherokee native herbalism book. I referenced that book, and these are just some fun notes. Kind of bitter, like licorice. Okay. So licorice kind of sweet. Okay. Thank you, Anne. It's nice to have another opinion. I got mine and it went right into honey with garlic as an infusion and eating. So I, kind of had it. I didn't just get straight Elecampane taste. Elecampane, I think I mentioned this earlier. It's referred to as a wild sunflower by the Cherokee. The roots are used in a formula for treating coughs and lung problems. And here is what they use it with. They combine the flowers and the roots with slippery elm and wild cherry. And I'm assuming this is probably wild cherry bark. But, we use wild cherry bark in a lot of things. And slippery elm is another mucilaginous herb. So that makes sense. I mean, in my mind, you could even use those 3 ingredients right there and make little lozenges. And the Cherokee consider it a cure-all plant. So I thought that was really interesting. Currently, the herb in the Cherokee Nation is used for treating asthma, bronchitis, cough and indigestion, and to stimulate the appetite. That's the only place that I saw stimulate the appetite. And I don't know that I felt like it stimulated my appetite when I was taking it. Just saying. Maybe they're saying when somebody is really sick or something. I don't know. I can only report on my own personal experience. All right, safety considerations. So I do want to point out that just about every book that I looked into said no warnings, no warnings, no nada, no warnings, no contraindications other than for pregnancy and women breastfeeding. And I want to point out, always make sure that whenever you're studying your herbs that you break out your book that's about the contraindications for drugs and other herbs. So I broke that book out because I didn't see anything. I found in one place that it said large doses may cause, vomiting, diarrhea, gastric spasms, and allergic gastric spasms. And then I also saw somewhere else where there was an allergic reaction to topical use after it was used for several days. So keep that in mind. But in the book, in the contraindications book, I found that it is an herb that may counteract the effectiveness of warfarin and other anticoagulant medications. So if you are anyone who's on, blood thinners, or even if you're just somebody who, eats garlic because you want to keep your, blood and not too thick, just in a nice, I don't know, like if you're not on medications, bear with me. But there's a lot of people that I know believe that taking garlic every day is helpful. And I'm on team garlic. So I kind of keep this in mind because what it means is if I was to be taking this, the garlic might not be, as impactful as it would otherwise. So keep that in mind. It's good to know. And in TCM, There, one comment, again, from the book that I just shared with you, stated, and this is a quote, Elecampane's bitter, acrid, and warm nature can injure yin and disperse qi. Therefore, it should be used with caution for patients with yin vacuity. So yin vacuity or yin deficiency are the same thing, but yin vacuity is just the way that a lot of TCM people say it, but it's the same as yin deficiency, which I feel like is a little more easier to understand if you're somebody who's not necessarily studying traditional Chinese medicine. But that's somebody who's really dry. Just to give you a couple of the highlights for yin deficiency, they might be somebody who's really dry. They're going to have dry skin. They could have dry eyes. And it will help. So think about that. This is already a drying herb, and you don't need to make anybody any drier than they already are. So kind of keeping that in mind. So preparation type. Wow, I'm getting through this pretty quick. So as a decoction, so that means, kind of like a tea, but not a tea. In other words, if you're going to decoct something, you put the herbs in your water, and usually in a recipe like this, you're probably putting 3 to 9 grams in like 4 cups of water or 5 cups of water. And then you'll simmer it. You simmer it down. Okay. You usually simmer it for about around 20 minutes, I think is pretty standard. You simmer the herbs for 20 minutes, not boil, just simmer. And then you'll pour it into a cup, and usually, you have, that one pot is enough for you to drink throughout the day. Also a fresh root tincture would be at a ratio of 1 to 2, 75% alcohol. If you want to know how to create tinctures that are like this, that are medicinally correct, I did a video on that, and I tinctured several different things with several different ratios and percentages, and wrote out the math for you guys to see, to make it as easy as possible. With dried leaf, it's 1 to 5 at 60% alcohol. And then 1 to 2 milliliters, 2 to 4 times daily. This was according to one of my references by Easley and Horn. But I also want to point out that this is the only book that mentioned using the leaves. And I thought that was really interesting. And I'll be asking Thomas about that. Thomas Garon, the author of this other book. His book doesn't mention like the 1 to 2, 75% alcohol ratio. And I also thought it was interesting that they didn't, share the details for the dried root, right? Like usually you see it both, but normally if they don't share the details for the dried root, you could estimate the alcohol percentage is probably going to be 40%, and you're probably going to be fine doing the folk method. At least you're not going to end up with a super inferior tincture by doing it that way. If 75% for fresh root, I would imagine 40 to 50% for dried root. But I thought another thing was interesting. In the book by Thomas Garon, it suggested 2 to 4 milliliters. So just kind of pointing that little difference out here. At the end of the day, if you or anybody that you know and you're suggesting that they try this, you want to just start out slow. Let them have an opportunity to see how their body's going to react. Oops, I got a typo here. Hang on, guys. It's a tonic herb. I mean, it has a fairly safe profile overall, keeping in mind the other things that we talked about here. If you're not pregnant, you're not breastfeeding, you're probably not going to, large doses usually means a substantial quantity that you're not going to be doing. And one thing that I'll be sharing here in just a second, and the reason I say you're probably not going to be doing, you'll see why I say that in just a minute. You can also take this as a glycerite, the dried root, 1 to 8. ratio, and 5 milliliters or 1 teaspoon 3 times daily. And this is why I say you're probably not going to be taking a lot of it, because this herb is used as an ingredient a lot more often than it is used as just a single. Hey, Lori, thanks for coming. Your book says just the root. Yeah. And that's what I'm, when I prepare for these lives and when I'm creating my monographs, because these are just to help me, become more intimately familiar with these herbs, creating a monograph gets you there. And I mean, it gets me there, but if you created your own monograph, it would get you there too. And when I'm creating these monographs, I do several different things. I break out all of my books and I start referencing what are all of my books saying. And I pull my information from that. So that's how I do it. And then I can also doing it in that fashion allows me the opportunity to do like a, comparison contrast, analysis on my different textbooks that I have to kind of say, okay, well, this one didn't really talk about it much. Like this one did, but they said this. And then I'm sharing with you the differences that I find. Hey, Kevin, thanks for coming. Oh, and thank you so much for sharing out. I appreciate you. So this herb, like I mentioned, isn't necessarily always used by itself, but it could be. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But it's used as an ingredient in a bitter formula. I found some of those in a cough syrup, like we mentioned earlier, with mullein, with wild cherry bark. And I mean, there's multiple herbs that you could add this to. Hyssop would probably be a good one. And it's also a tonic respiratory formula. Notice tonic respiratory formula. Anybody who has emphysema, maybe somebody who has, I was going to say COPD, but only it depends. Remember that this herb is drying. So if you're going to say, hey, eat some Elecampane honey and garlic, and you're going to be, good, and they have a real dry cough, it's liable to possibly dry them out even more and cause them more problems. So wouldn't be for them. It'd be somebody who has a really wet cough. And then when it comes to stuff like that, you really gotta check in with people. You got to, and personal experience, even for myself, if you take an herbal, treatment to treat yourself while you're sick with any kind of respiratory thing, you got to do a check-in. It's not like one herb's going to get you through the whole thing, because your symptoms are liable to change, and you could throw yourself from being a really wet cough to a really dry cough fairly quickly because the herbs are effective. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also an ingredient in a parasite formula, maybe with some oregano. Also an asthma long-term formula. And I wrote this down, Tilgner, page 248, because I got a friend that wants me to create an asthma tincture. And there's a formula here. I'm probably going to try that one. And I wanted to share that this recipe for tooth powder. And I just thought this was cool because it's topical use, and it's honing in on the antiseptic properties that this herb has. And it is equal parts of the following powdered herbs. Horsetail, that makes sense, right? Silica content, the silica content of horsetail. That's why it's there. White oak bark, black walnut, calendula, myrrh gum, and the elecampane. Equal parts of all of these in a powder as a tooth powder. I thought that was really cool. And then I wanted to add this. This came again from this book. If you're here and you're just now seeing it, I'll hold the book again. From this Western Herbs According to Traditional Chinese Medicine. And if you get the book and you really like the way this book is written, the guy that wrote this is the owner of the herb school that I'm going to. And And you can find that school. It's called East West Herbs or whatever, but it's on herbwhisperer.com. So doing a plug there for them. But major TCM combinations, I'm going to go through those, but just mentioning, if you're going to use it as a tonic, Elecampane should be honey mix fried to increase its supplementing action. Remember, it's a supplementing herb, which is why I have this highlighted up here in yellow. Vitamins and minerals, not a significant source. I can't find anywhere that's going to tell me what they are. But yet, according to traditional Chinese medicine, it is a supplementing herb and it supports the spleen. So I know it's got to be out there somewhere. I'm just going to have to keep looking. But honey mix fried. So, and it speak to it a little bit down here. So, major TCM combinations, spleen chi vacuity with bloating and diarrhea. So what does this tell you? Spleen chi vacuity. Bloating and diarrhea are symptoms of that. Use honey mix fried Elecampane combined with white atractylodes and astragalus. That's astragalus root. Whoopsie, I got a typo. If you're treating, oh, hey, Heather, thanks for coming. If you're treating a cough with lots and lots of white or clear sputum, again, guys, the word sputum is being used because in traditional Chinese medicine, phlegm has a different meaning. So bear with me on that. But if somebody's coughing, they're coughing up bunches of white and clear stuff. That person would benefit from a formula of Pinellia, citrus peel, and raw or honey mix fried Elecampane. If spleen chi vacuity is present, you want to use the honey mix fried Elecampane. And if there's minimal vacuity present, then you want to use the raw Elecampane. If you're using Elecampane and you're wanting to treat diarrhea with phlegm and blood in the stool, due to heat and blood stasis in the intestines, you would combine trichosanthus root, red root, Chinese skullcap, and raw or honey mix fried Elecampane. All right. So who are these books who's Tilgner? Tilgner's this one, Herbal Medicine from the Heart of the Earth. I don't have it next to me, but I shared this book on this live before. Sorry about the ads, guys. I'm watching this on my phone so I can see we're all kind of getting shelled, I think. Tilgner, Herbal Medicine from the Heart of the Earth. And here's the Cherokee Herbal Native Plant Medicine from the Four Directions book that I referenced. Just a fun fact, my husband's family is Cherokee. I mean, they're registered, like, I guess the word's not registered, it's something else, but they have their white cards, put it that way. And then also this one, I always like to reference this Modern Herbal Dispensatory, a medicine making guide. Great book. The Western Herbs According to Traditional Chinese Medicine. That's the one that I showed you all. And The Way of Herbs by Michael Tierra. Oh, do I have that listed twice? Do I? Oh, I don't. Okay, good. Yeah, Modern Herbal Dispensatory. That's a different one. Okay. So those were my references. Now we can talk about some fun stuff. You can do, I know. All right. So I really like to look up the non-clinical and clinical trials. I try to capture some of these that are more current and share them with you. So that's what we're going to go through. And I highlighted them according to some of the different indications. So you could see, I want you to get, what I'm hoping everybody leaves this live with is just an awareness that Elecampane is not just a lung herb and it's not just a digestive herb. For whatever you've heard, I just want you to be aware of the differences. So this first one, it's a human randomized controlled trial for respiratory cough. And this was in pediatrics. So I thought this was really interesting. It was in 106 children aged 3 to 6. It was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled 8-day study using a syrup. And I kind of like this too because, it's not a recipe with how much you use of what. But Plantago major, pretty sure that's plantain. Malva sylvestris, that is marshmallow root. Helichrysum, well, helichrysum is helichrysum. I don't know what other name. I only have used the essential oil, so I'm not sure what the other, plant is, but they use that. And honey. So that was the syrup, what the syrup was made from. And children receiving the formula had an earlier and significant reduction in both daytime and nighttime cough. And I kind of highlighted this because, sometimes people don't cough as much during the day. Have y'all ever noticed that when you're sick, nighttime rolls around, you're trying to lay down and your lungs are just not having it? They want you to be upright. And you start in with the coughing. So I thought that was really interesting that it impacted both daytime and nighttime cough. And it resulted in a shorter duration of cough compared with placebo. Oh, those poor kids that were on placebo. I'm just saying, that really sucks. Like, really? You put 3 to 6 year olds on a placebo? Okay. But it was reported well tolerated by all. And I work in clinical research, guys. So I catch little things like that. All right. And anti-inflammatory. So here's another one. So we knew about the lung thing, but they used it in, pediatrics. And there was no, nothing saying that it couldn't be used for kids. Again, do your own research. It depends on the child, of course. And, all of that good stuff. So anti-inflammatory properties. And this was what we would call a non-clinical trial. So it was an animal study. And they were looking at rheumatoid arthritis models. And I thought that was really interesting. So what this study examined, and it's from 2017, examined total sesquiterpene lactones from Inula helenium, which is your Elecampane, particularly these guys. Remember, we saw these guys at the top, the antoalactone and the isoallantoalactone. And the researchers used both adjuvant-induced and collagen-induced arthritis in rats. Okay, poor rats. What this means is they gave the arthritis to the rats. Okay. They have to. If they're going to study it on the rats, they got to make them have arthritis first. So I know. That's just the way that it works. That's the way this stuff works. So they gave the rats arthritis. And then they extracted the extract. They examined what it did. And the extract inhibited inflammatory signaling involving all of these markers and reduced inflammatory mediators, all of these guys. Okay. So in other words, it inhibited or prevented inflammatory signaling and it reduced inflammatory mediators. So it lowered inflammation. There's an easier way of saying all that. And that was with an oral administration. Remember, this is to rats, guys. This is not human beings we're talking here. 12.5 to 50 milligrams per kilograms. And they found that it reduced arthritis severity and paw swelling in the rats. So that is interesting, and it suggests that Elecampane's traditional anti-inflammatory reputation may be connected to its sesquiterpene lactones, rather than simply being an antioxidant effect. But this, again, is preclinical evidence, okay? There isn't a comparable human rheumatoid arthritis trial establishing therapeutic efficacy, but this is where it starts. So kind of has you to thinking, right, that wow, Elecampane has anti-inflammatory properties. And where do those properties come from? These sesquiterpene lactones. So remember earlier, and when I go through this, and I know maybe sometimes there might be one person out there, and I'm zooming because I want to scroll back up here to the constituents, where here's all the constituents, and they're all these really long words, and you're like, okay, these do not have any, they don't have any special meaning for me. Now, when you see sesquiterpene lactone, you could think to yourself, Does this herb have anti-inflammatory qualities that might impact rheumatoid arthritis? Just saying. Okay, now let me scroll back down to where we were. All right. Any questions? Jan, yes. Yep, Jan was right. Oh, you were bottling honey, Heather? Oh my goodness. Marshmallow is like Elecampane. I like that question. Marshmallow is like Elecampane. Might be a little bit of an overstatement, but they do have similar qualities. They're both great for digestive health. They're both mucilaginous. They're both anti-inflammatory. I don't know. I might have to like break out a book to give you more comparisons. What a fun thing, too. I'm glad you asked that question. I love that. All right, okay, personal notes here. This is just my place to come where I can come back to my notes and put little notes in here. But I've used this in honey with garlic for cough, like I mentioned earlier. I really want to try to make the honey mix fried Elecampane used for a spleen chi deficiency, like in a formula. I really want to do that. I think that a lot of people have spleen chi deficiency. And bless your heart, Anne. Thank you so much. Friend, you just don't have to do that. I just love you for doing it, but bless your heart. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So I really want to try to make the honey mix fried Elecampane for spleen chi deficiency myself. For one thing, I'm not sure you can find it to buy it. I think that might be kind of hard. You need to learn how to do it. Maybe I should do a video on that, along with making some stuff with Elecampane. I might do that. So these are just my personal notes. Wow, and I finished a little bit early today. Thank you, Anne. Always throws me off my game when you do that. I feel a little like, I don't know. Thank you. I'm very appreciative and very thankful. And you don't need to do that. Makes me, I don't know, you just do it. Makes me feel kind of bad sometimes because you don't need to do that. But thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Aw, thank you. I'm glad you guys find this helpful. Oh, hey, Brooke Trout. Thanks for coming. So let's talk about what's going to be coming next. Hey, Troy. That's okay. Yes, I think we have such a fun group here. And if you follow the chat along, even if you're not in the chat and you just follow it along, yes, stay tuned with the chat because everybody here is studying herbs in some capacity. And I love that people share. They share they share great questions. They share great information. It's just really fun to read all of it. Okay, I need to know. I'm going to pull out my notes here. So next week, I'm probably going to be doing another monograph. I hope you guys enjoy these monographs because it's something I need to do for my school and for me to get my registered herbalist designation is to just get real up close and personal with these herbs and doing a monograph is a way to do that. So next week, I might be sharing I think I might share a digestive herb because that's going to kind of work in with an assignment that I'm working on at the same time. So anybody have any like requests? Although I will tell you, I have tons of lemongrass that I need to harvest. And I'm tempted to do one of those just because I know I need to harvest the lemongrass I got growing. Give me some ideas on what I can use it for. Any requests? Got lemongrass. I don't know. I don't know if I've done burdock root yet. I don't think that I have. That's one that I'm kind of thinking about. And You know, I hate to do something like dandelion root. Like everybody knows dandelion root. Did I already do it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I come up with. But one of these times, I might have to do a Chinese herb. Oh, hops. That's a good one. That would be fun. Oh, did she? The lemongrass essential oil? Mm-hmm. I add it to my dog's. I get like a scent free, like a shampoo base for my dog, and I like to put lemongrass in there. Aw, hey, Tamara. Thank you for watching the replay. I appreciate you all doing that. And if anybody does have a channel and you could share this out, that would be great. Oh, well, I explain hey, they're big words. I don't care who you are. When you're saying, what were they called? You know, when you're talking about attractalodes and you're talking about the sesquiterpenes, I don't care who you are. That's a big word. It takes a whole lot of letters. But I explain them. I hope I explain them well. If you don't get it the first time, you'll get it the second time, because some of these basic chemical constituents to these herbs, they're just a different combination of them. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you all so much for coming. It kept the wasps out of the kitchen. Oh, good idea. That is a good idea. I like that. All right. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I hope you do a bunch of fun herby stuff. And I will see you back next Tuesday. Thank you, and bye, everybody.